They do. They truly. See, the trick was, and it's been written about too, is to make a generation believe that they were on the cutting edge that no other society has ever had before in history, and that all information is out there and it's all true, and therefore, in other words, there's nothing you can tell them. They truly believe everything that they've been told.
An arrogance, a haughtiness, a false satisfiedness that they're members of the elite. I mean, here's a microcosm. There have been tens of thousands of urban warfare drills the last 25 years. I mean, they have thousands a year. So, I mean, it's got to be tens of thousands, more than tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands. And they always tell the town or city, even though they may have been there 15 times over the years, you are the first city to have this drill. You are special. You are the first city to have us tax you to drive your car with transponders. You are the first. And I would always see that and go, but they're not the first. But again, it's part of that, oh my God, I'm part of the first. I'm cutting edge. I'm a trailblazer. Go ahead, please.
Exactly. That is how it's done. And they truly believe that the most advanced species that's ever existed. That's exactly what Bertrand Russell and others said in the 50s. They said, we shall create an egocentric society, a hedonistic society where they'll live for themselves and think they know it all, and they will be the willing fools for our strategy. Well, that's happened. That's happened.
And you can take them to the documents, the published works, government policy, and they will just laugh at you. They'll get this pre-programmed little smile and go, sure. Man, I tell you. And now they're openly announcing world government, Alan. They're now openly announcing the banks are going to run it all, carbon taxes. And still, people email me and post on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com in the comments. They say, oh, they're announcing world government, but that's different than the one you're talking about. Or governance isn't government. It says Lord Rothschild called last week for governance. Well, governance is, in the definitions, government, the system of government. So global system of government. And then they say, okay, they're calling for a new world order, but that just means a new system. And I go, but we told you specifically it would be by the bankers, that they would create the collapse. We had their documents. And they just say, no, I'm sorry. I'm in power. I'm a member of the establishment, and that's impossible. I mean, how do you break through to them?
Most of them you can't. I've even had people, yuppies, who say that they want the brain chip, and that the big benefactors at the top that designed it to help them and to make them happy. They really believe this.
I've had them tell me that too.
And I say to them, I say, well, don't forget there are going to be central computers to program that chip, which means you're not going to be in control of your own mind anymore.
And they just laugh and go, ah.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're a lost cause, and I realize this is a war, and you have the vast amount of people are the casualties. That's just the plain fact. But in a war, you got to see the war that's still going on and accept those that have fallen, and you go for those who are still standing. That's the ones you try to help.
Well, the good news is there are more people than ever that do want to hear, that do want to know. And it's so three-dimensional and even four-dimensional how it's all interlocked. And after decades of study, you can get a map of it in your own mind. You can articulate it, but still, it's so hard to articulate the subtleties to people. The globalists in their own documents articulate it and try to articulate it. And because the public can't see it as one-dimensional or two-dimensional, they'll just throw it out of hand saying, that's too complicated for anyone to run, when it is being run and they say they're running it.
They say, and that's the key to the term they're using of governance. You see, the new system that's already here, it's been here for a long time, is a system that to the public appears to be something called democracy. In reality, you have a parallel government run by foundations, which in turn are a front for the ancient establishment, the very wealthy, rich establishment. They fund the non-governmental organizations that appear to speak on behalf of the public, but in reality, they're speaking on behalf of the very foundations that fund them. That's the new type of governance they're talking about. It is the Soviet system. The Soviet means rule by councils. And in the Soviet Union, they had NGO groups with their leaders appointed from the Politburo. We have the exact same system here as they merged the two systems together. Like that came out at the Ford from the Ford Foundation during the Rees Commission, and with Norman Dodds, the senator. They said that they were blending the Soviet system seamlessly with that of the West. The Club of Rome said they favored the collective system more than any other system because it's easier to control the people. So it is here, and they're using the Sovietized system with the NGOs, and governance literally means that those groups with the power and the voice, who get the voice, and the media is too happy to listen to them, they are the new type of government. This is the new Soviet that has been brought in. If you don't belong to a big group, you have no voice whatsoever. And these big,
and they call them stakeholders. The individual has no voice, but all these subgroups who then have heads who are globalists, who speak for them and really control them, they are stakeholders. And we see all this nomenclature now coming in and replacing everything. Alan, I want to go to calls here, but just in closing, before we do that, the plan, the official UN documents, as you know, and government documents say they want to reduce this by 80%. Mm-hmm. And everything we've seen up till now is just testing the soft kill weapons, testing how to sell the public, how to not have the public notice that people are dying all around them, how to try to cook the numbers and spin things. But we know there's been hot kill going on in Iraq, hot kill in Serbia, Afghanistan, Africa, Latin America, where, large portions of populations are being killed, 10, 20, 30, 40% in some cases. The hot killing, the fast killing in the West, when are they going to start launching those?
I think fairly shortly. They have big plans to standardize the world quickly. What they're doing, and that's exactly what they're doing, they're eradicating all older cultures that haven't gone along and accepted this very vague term of democracy. They haven't accepted World Bank running their system. They haven't accepted basically the British-style parliamentary system, because this whole world system was born in London, England. It's from the 1500s. John Dee wrote about the creation of a world empire based on the British system.
And it's now come out that the Crown, MI5 and MI6 run the whole parliament, spy on it. They kill any member or set them up that gets out of line. It is totally ceremonial, just like the Congress.
Yes, and after World War II, there were big talks at the United Nations once they set it up, that those colonial countries would not be pulled out of by Britain until they had set up in those countries a mini British-type system of government. And then they could pull out and withdraw. It might take a generation.
And they wrote hundreds of books, from Quigley's to others, bragging about the system. But you go to Wikipedia or to the mainline Encyclopedia Britannica, and they say the New World Order doesn't exist. Doesn't matter if it's taught at Princeton and Harvard and Oxford, and they admit the system of world governance through the shadow roundtables. They will just still laugh at us and say it doesn't exist.
That's right, even though the historian for the Council on Foreign Relations, which is part of the parallel government, Carroll Quigley himself, wrote his big book on it, The Anglo-American Establishment and Tragedy and Hope, and he outlines in there their whole agenda. It was quite fascinating.
Yeah, that's a great book. I read that back when I was about 15, and I had no idea what I was reading was the keys to how it all worked. And this is the government commissioning, because the people in government really have to know how it works. These are the slaves. We're poisoning them. We're going to get rid of them. Okay, and if you work with us, you'll be allowed to procreate, and we won't kill you. How's that sound?
Another odd thing too was back in the 90s. I don't know if I think it was the same in the U.S., but politicians in Canada and the British Commonwealth countries, they made a law to treat the politicians and their families in special military hospitals. And I thought at the time, well, what's all this about? Aren't the hospitals that we have good enough for them? And I realized, too, what it is all these coming plagues that are scheduled to come out, they do have treatments for them. They do have the real antidotes to them. And I think they've been giving the politicians and the families these particular antidotes. And so in other
that's
words,
actually already come out. They get all the cancer cures, they get it all.
Yes.
This is so diabolical.
And that's why they go along with it, these politicians, and they will keep their mouths shut, they will play the game, because they're getting all these benefits and a fairly good guarantee they will live. Yeah.
Ultra vicious, ultra wicked, ultra selfish, and a lot of you listening will continue to laugh. But God forbid, as you're burying your children, your wife, your husband, from what your masters are going to do to you, maybe then you'll fight back. Then you'll be facing the drone aircraft and the swords and the brainwashed, chipped troops. But we can still get into their deep underground bases even after this happens and probably beat them. But we'll see. We'll be right back. Stay with us.